I'm making something out of cardboard again. It seems to be my favorite material to work with lately because it's cheap and free. It's easy to work with, and it's free. I saved these boxes from a project we're doing in our backyard. The long boxes held the rails for the back porch, and this box here had some furniture pieces that I ordered. So I saved the boxes because I knew that I was going to need to make 3 big items. The first thing I have to do is flatten out the boxes, so I'm using my craft knife to flatten the boxes. I am making decorations for the 250th celebration of America for our Vacation Bible School, which is coming up in about 9 weeks. And I'm in charge of the decorations in the program, so I want to get started on putting together this cardboard. Now I like to layer the cardboard 3 to 4 inches thick, so you can watch me work. Now I need to just give it some time to dry, to set real good, and do 2 more layers. And then I will draw and cut out the items that I'm going to make. The tall boxes are great because I need to make a Statue of Liberty. The lower box is good for, I need to make the Liberty Bell, and I also want to make a life-size bald eagle in flight, symbols of America. This was a lot of things to cut out with my craft knife, and that would make my hands very tired. I decided to pull out the jigsaw. It's when you're working with cardboard that's 4 layers thick, you can easily use a jigsaw to cut out the items. My husband volunteered to help hold the pieces I was cutting out the eagle. No, I did not mess up my table when using the jigsaw because I kept checking and I was very careful. Some parts I could not use the jigsaw, the points on, the sharp points on Liberty's crown and the individual feathers on the tips of the eagle's wing. I could not cut those out with the jigsaw either. and the stars, I had to do those with the craft knife. So I cut out as much as I could with the jigsaw and then finished the rest with my trusty craft knife. And I always work on a cutting board so I don't mess up my table. American Eagle. So we have the American Eagle, Statue of Liberty, and the Liberty Bell. I decided to add just a little bit more dimension to the pedestal. I don't have the whole pedestal here, part of the pedal, but adding some strips and cutting away some spaces where the windows are to recess it, and adding strips on top to bring it forward to just give a little bit more dimension. I mean, I could paint it so it looks dimensional, but it would help to have that extra dimension with extra pieces of cardboard. Brown paper grocery sacks are also an item that I save every time because I use them every time I'm making something with cardboard because it's a great finishing material, plus it's the same color as the cardboard. So I take the bottom off the bag, open up the bag, and then cut strips from it. I'm going to finish off the edges with brown paper. I use strips of brown paper bag to cover the edges so that I can hide the corrugated rough edges after I put on the edging. Here's what it looks like. It's folded around from the front to the back, and you can see how it overlaps, and it just gives a clean edge. The Statue of Liberty ended up being a whole 1.5 inches thick with about 8 layers of cardboard because it was a little bit wobbly and it was kind of bending in the middle. You probably saw it when I moved it one time and it kind of flopped a bit. So I used some of my leftover scrap pieces that were cut off, attached it to the back to give it greater strength. After assessing how I'm going to display it, I changed my mind and decided I'm going to paint both the front and the back. Now I had this odd little shape on the back end of it that was much thicker than the rest of it. So I had to piece together with all of my cut off scraps to fill in the entire back, making it flat on both the front and the back. So here I am putting the siding on my Statue of Liberty to hide all those layers and layers of cardboard corrugated edges. I have to use a much thicker piece because I'm going around a thicker piece of cardboard. First, apply some glue to the top edge, and along the edge, it won't glue to the sides 100%, but it'll catch it in some places. And then I conform the flat edge to the shape of the figure, overlapping the little tabs. And this process takes the longest, doing this to all of the items that I'm making. 3 large items. To easily go around curves, you always clip the curves. The smaller the curve, the shorter the clips. If it's a straighter edge, you can clip it like every inch or every half inch. If it goes around a tight corner, you can clip it every 1/4 inch or smaller, whatever is needed to conform that paper around the edge of the object. See how my back is pieced together with so many pieces? I will cover that with a solid piece of brown paper to hide all of those seams. But I did have to do a lot of piecework to make this whole backside nice and even. You may notice that around the crown, I cut off the top layer of the crown, so that it looks like the crown points are set back just a little bit, and the crown front will protrude just a little bit, and I think that'll look better. Besides, I want the points to run behind the arm on the back side of her, which will be painted. And I'm using those points to attach the head to the arm to give stability to the whole thing. And I didn't want to separate them. But I will paint points of those three that are look like they're attached to the arm, but I'm going to make it look like they went behind the arm. Plain edge on the very edge, hiding the corrugated part, but it looks kind of rough on the outer edges of the item. So I cover it with a flat piece of paper that goes all the way to the edge. I used a lot of cardboard and a lot of paper bags and a lot of glue for this project. I trace it. I understand that as I trace it, it's going to be just a little bit bigger. So when I cut it, I cut on the inside of the line, cutting a little bit off. I check it before I glue it down. If there's any other adjustments that need to be made to the cutout, I make those marks and cut them to get a good fit. I cover both the front and the back of each shape with a flat piece of brown paper bag just to give it a nice clean finish. For the Statue of Liberty and the Liberty Bell, I've decided to paint both front and back because of where I'm going to be putting it in the church. Because it's going to be decoration for the month of July, not just for our Vacation Bible School. But the eagle, I'm only going to paint the front side of it because it's going to hang against the wall, like over the baptistry is where I'm thinking it's going to go. It's tedious work covering the edges and it's very time consuming, so I usually put on a video or listen to something while I'm doing this tedious process. But it's going to be worth it in the end because it's going to give it a nice, clean finish. I use a ceramic bowl to pour my glue in, and I'm using Elmer's school glue, which really is the best glue for this project. Sometimes I use tacky glue. Tacky glue is a little more expensive. It's a thicker glue. Elmer's glue is a little thinner, so it's great for this project. It spreads very easy with a brush. Wood glue is really thick, and it doesn't spread very nice. It's good for wood, but not for paper products. It actually took me much longer to do around the wingtips than it did the Statue of Liberty, because she's one big solid piece, so it had the only part that took more time was going around the crown points. So I cover the edge all the way around from beginning to end, and then I trace and cut paper to fit on the top side and the bottom side so that I have a good ready to paint surface that looks relatively smooth. Yeah, there could be some bubbles or wrinkles in the paper or some leftover folds from the paper bags. That's okay. The paint job will hide all of that. It's important after every gluing session that you wash your brush thoroughly. And I'm also going to make an arc of golden stars. And I have the stars cut out. I need to finish off the edges, same as I've done with everything else. And I'm going to spray paint them gold. And then they will be attached to the arch that will be formed with 2 PVC pipes joined together at the top. I'm going to wrap it in red, white, and blue streamer, and then I'm going to hot glue, and I'm also going to string. I'm going to poke 4 holes in the center of the star so I can use some fishing wire to make an X on the front and tie the stars onto the bent or pipe, and then I will hot glue it so it doesn't slide, so it'll stay in place. So that should look really cool. I can't wait to see it all put together. So far I have 17 stars. I don't know if I need more stars than that. Maybe that's enough, hopefully. The stars are only 2 layers thick. They didn't need to be very thick because they're a small item. And I first worked out a pattern on cardstock to be able to trace the stars, to have all the stars to be the same shape. Did you know that it is much easier to draw a perfect star that's 6-pointed, whereas drawing a 5-pointed star is a lot harder? Yeah, maybe I'll show you that sometime. I actually gave my husband an art lesson. I said, you want to learn how to draw a star, a perfect star? I can show you how to draw a perfect star. And so I gave him a protractor, a pencil, a ruler, and a piece of paper, and I instructed him. And he thought it was quite fun. And then I showed him all the different things you could do with that. Maybe I'll do a short video on that subject, because it is quite fascinating, because there's a lot of things you can do, starting with a circle and the different shapes you can create out of it. Finishing up the stars today. I have been working on this project for weeks. I can't wait to get the stars finished so that I can start painting. So my house is filled with patriotic things. Statue of Liberty is standing over here in the corner up on an easel. And then I have the Liberty Bell sitting here on a table, which is also on a short easel, which is going to work good for that. And then over here we have the American bald eagle, which is going to be flying. And I'm still working on covering these stars. I got the edges all done. I just need to put the flat pieces on the front and the back. Then they'll be ready to paint. Soon I shall begin painting, but right now I have to get ready for company because I have family coming over. The fun part is going to be painting. I'll get started painting. Well, here is my eagle. See how wide it is? It is as wide as I am tall. Normally, I start a painting from the top left side, working my way down so that I don't lay my hand in wet paint. But since I had just finished painting the eagle, I wanted to use up the brown paint. And I used those on the pedestal. So I worked from the bottom to the top. The brown paper is kind of dark, and where I need to have very light areas where the highlights are, I usually have to paint those areas a couple of times. So I will pick out all my highlights and put two layers of white paint so that when I put the colors on, it'll be a whole lot easier to get the values that I want. I don't care about the rest of the shadow colors because I can adjust those with my actual paint color. So when painting folds of fabric, it is setting the values in the proper order with soft, subtle changes of color within a single fold. Where one piece of fabric is laying across another, the matter then becomes about contrast, dark against light, light against dark. My shadows are mostly on the right side, and my highlights are on the left. I did the reverse on the back side to be consistent with the lighting. I also painted the back side of the lady because where it's going to be on display, both sides will be visible. And I want a nice display at any angle with no exposed cardboard. For the torch, I painted the whole area a medium value, then sketched the design details with pencil. It's not an exact of the design of the torch. I simplified the design into simple patterns that I could understand. Then I went in with lighter values, later enhanced the design with darker values, working the design until I was completely satisfied with it. And I also added some more extra highlights on the light side. I carried the design around to this both sides and on the back as well. Well, here she is, the completed painting of the Statue of Liberty. Lady Liberty is now complete. Isn't she lovely? It is now time to paint the last item, the bell. I used black Sharpie markers to go around my letters, making the shadow side darker, thicker. My goal is to make the letters look raised, as they are on the actual bell. By taking the time to do this, it will improve my painting. You can see that I first penciled the letters in before going over them with markers. I have to paint the bell upside down because of the little dingling thing here. Gets in my way, and I don't want to bend it, so I'm just gonna paint it upside down because it's easier to put the thing on my easel. I can rest it here, and I can put the little dingling beside this part there. My inspiration photos, I put them upside down too. There are less letters on the back side, which also does not have a crack. Well, I'm calling the front side with the crack the bell. I think it is because it has more words in the center, and there are no words in the center of the back of the bell. So I guess that the front side is the crack side. Anyway, I had to use multiple photos to understand placement of the words. I grabbed several reference photos from the internet to help me understand what the bell looked like in different lighting. Some photos were kind of dull looking, and some photos had better lighting, and the bell would have a shine. I used all of them to help me understand the image, especially the raised lettering on the bell of each side. Looking at all the photos, I then determined that the bell looks like a bronze color. I did not copy any one photo, but I got ideas from all of the collection of photos. I wanted the bell to have a shine, so I began laying in a golden yellow for the shine in the center of the bell. The yellow layer is semi-transparent, so the brown of the cardboard kind of comes through, which really worked for me. Then I chose 2 browns to create the gradient colors. I got lucky, and I chose the right 2 colors, raw umber and raw sienna. Made the perfect color that I was going for. I actually don't even like raw umber brown. I think it's a very ugly brown, and I rarely use it, whether watercolor or acrylic paint. But it was perfect for this project and gave me the result I wanted, to make the bell look like a real bronze bell. I then used unbleached titanium for the shiny highlights for the letters and the tops of each rib running around the bell. I used 3 values on the letters: the highlight for the top side of each part of the letter, a mix of medium brown, and the black outline. I did not bother to paint over the black marker. I just let the marker work for me as the shadow color of the letters, which is the right and the bottom side of each part of the letters. So here are my completed 3 cardboard props, which will be decorations for our 250th celebration of America. I just need to spray paint the stars with metallic gold paint. I wish I could show you the full display, but it won't be set up until the end of June, and it will be on display for the entire month of July, to add to the festive spirit of the month, which will include our Patriotic VBS. My pastor wanted to focus on the symbols of America, which is why I made these items. You can make just about anything out of cardboard, and when it is done right, nobody will know that it's made from cardboard. I love working with cardboard. It took me several weeks to complete this project, so I have not been able to put out weekly videos because I was pressing myself to get this project done so I could put it all in a single video. I hope you enjoyed the process. Thanks for watching.